Israel accused of genocide. Gaza Humanitarian Crisis explained. In a dramatic shift, two prominent Israeli human rights organizations have officially accused the government of committing genocide in Gaza, a claim that has long been dismissed by domestic and international groups, but now faces scrutiny. This development comes as the conflict escalates, with both sides vying for legitimacy in the global spotlight. The report, released by B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights Israel, details how Israel's military actions in the Gaza Strip have targeted civilians, destroyed essential infrastructure, and undermined the health and survival of Palestinians, all part of a 21-month campaign aimed at dismantling Hamas. The organizations argue that the deliberate targeting of Gaza's population, rather than just combatants, constitutes genocide, a legal term that has only been recognized by the UN since 1946. We are witnessing a calculated effort to eradicate the Palestinian people, said Guy Shalev, executive director of Physicians for Human Rights Israel, during a press conference in Jerusalem. He cited specific instances of systematic attacks on healthcare systems, food shortages, and the use of humanitarian aid to support military operations, all of which point to a pattern of intent. This is not a war. This is a genocide, he declared. Netanyahu's office responded with staunch denials, calling the report a blasphemy and asserting that Israel's actions are justified under self-defense. David Mencer, the spokesman, emphasized that the allegations aim to delegitimize Israel's right to defend itself against Hamas, a group he claims has committed atrocities. Our Prime Minister has consistently condemned these charges as outrageous, Mencer stated, arguing that Israel's military efforts are focused on eliminating terrorists, not civilians. The controversy centers on who bears responsibility for the suffering in Gaza. Mencer insisted that Hamas is the primary cause of the crisis, having embedded itself in civilian areas and instigated the war. He contrasted this with Israel's role in facilitating aid flows, which he claimed are critical to preventing further starvation. However, critics, including the Union for Reform Judaism, argue that Israel's restrictions on humanitarian aid, such as blocking UN relief efforts and prioritizing a private initiative, have exacerbated the crisis. The UN has called for urgent action, noting that over 2 million Palestinians reside in the enclave, and that current aid levels fall far below the minimum required to address malnutrition. Despite Israel's claims of enabling humanitarian deliveries, UN officials remain skeptical, stating that the country has not provided enough food or medicine to reverse the damage caused by months of restricted aid. Meanwhile, U.S. President Donald Trump, speaking in Scotland, expressed concern over the situation, describing the plight of Gazans as a catastrophe and urging the U.S. to intervene. He criticized Netanyahu's rhetoric, which he described as wiping out Gaza, and pledged to support food distribution efforts. B'Tselem's director, Yuli Novak, warned that the war's consequences, such as the deaths of 14 Palestinians due to starvation, must not be overlooked. He argued that genocide, though often justified in the eyes of those who commit it, is a crime that demands accountability. Every genocide has had its justification, Novak said, but the victims are always the ones who suffer. As the conflict intensifies, the debate over whether Israel's actions constitute genocide continues to divide opinion. While some see the accusations as a necessary reckoning, others view them as a politically motivated attempt to undermine Israel's legitimacy. The question remains, can the world distinguish between a war and a genocide? And will the international community finally act to prevent further suffering? Is this Gaza's bomb the tracks moment? The urgent call for action. This could be Gaza's defining moment of outrage, an event that echoes the infamous bomb the tracks strategy used during wartime. But here's where it gets controversial. Many argue that what's happening now in Gaza is not just a tragic conflict, but a form of ongoing genocide, broadcast live for the world to witness. Hind Rajab's heartbreaking final pleas, her desperate breaths, were streamed across the internet for all to see, turning her suffering into a global spectacle. Meanwhile, Israeli soldiers openly share videos of their destruction and atrocities on platforms like TikTok, proudly showcasing their actions. Palestinians, brave and resilient, have built massive social media followings, allowing viewers worldwide to witness their hunger, displacement, and terror firsthand. Never before has the world been exposed to such graphic, near real-time images of violence, starvation, and suffering. Images that evoke the darkest chapters of history. What makes this situation even more troubling is that the international community, the very leaders with the power to intervene and halt this tragedy, have known about Israel's actions and intentions from the very beginning. Yet, they have largely remained passive, doing almost nothing to stop the ongoing violence. The heartbreaking pleas of starving civilians, the images of emaciated bodies, and the dehumanization that underpins such cruelty remind me of the horrors faced by Jews imprisoned and starved in Nazi concentration camps like Bergen-Belsen. My own mother was one of those children, thrown into overcrowded, starving conditions with each passing week. In Bergen-Belsen, alongside my mother, was Hannah Levy-Hass, the mother of renowned journalist Amira Hass. Hannah kept a diary throughout her time in the camp, which survived and was later published. In February 1945, she wrote, "Hunger crushes the spirit. I feel my physical and mental strength waning. I can't think clearly. I can't grasp what's happening, and I can't fully comprehend the horror surrounding us." Her diary continued, "Our hunger has only intensified. Our bodies are broken by it. We drag ourselves around like rags. Men are collapsing from exhaustion and dying simply because they are starving." Fast forward to today, and the suffering persists. A Palestinian mother, also suffering from severe hunger, sits beside her malnourished infant at Nasser Hospital in Khan Yunis, southern Gaza, on July 23, 2025. Her story echoes the past, yet the world's response remains painfully inadequate. Recently, Ruwaida Amr, a journalist reporting from Khan Yunis, described her own physical decline. "For about a month now, I've lost the ability to keep up with the news. My focus is slipping. My body is breaking down." She recounts how her sister collapsed while searching for food, too weak to stand. One of the most haunting questions I've pondered about the Holocaust is what ordinary people could have done to prevent the mass murder and deportations. While some individuals risked everything to hide or smuggle Jews, larger-scale resistance was rare. For example, in early 1941, around 300,000 people in Amsterdam staged a general strike to oppose Nazi deportations. Tram drivers, sanitation workers, dock workers, and factory employees all joined in, shutting down the city in a desperate attempt to halt the Nazi machinery. The Nazi response was brutal. 9 protesters were killed in street clashes, dozens injured, and later 18 more were executed for their participation. Despite this brave effort, no similar mass mobilization occurred again, and the Nazis ultimately murdered over 3/4 of Dutch Jewry. Yet, history shows that international intervention could have made a difference. By 1944, Jewish leaders were urging the Allies to bomb Auschwitz and the railway lines that transported victims to the camps, an effort that might have saved countless lives. In fact, during a 2013 speech, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu claimed that the Allies knew about the Holocaust as it was happening and could have acted, but chose not to. He argued that repeated bombing of the camps could have saved millions of Jews and countless others. 4 years later, he reiterated this point, emphasizing that the world's inaction in 1942 was a moral failure. Fast forward to recent times, and the question remains, how can the international community prevent such atrocities today? At a conference organized by the magazine Jewish Currents last September, a provocative question was posed. Why don't we send our best generals to Gaza instead of just lawyers to The Hague? Zane Dangor, a senior South African diplomat, responded that military intervention might only worsen the situation, given the overwhelming power imbalance, Israel's backing by the U.S. and global influence making direct action extremely difficult. A few weeks ago, I attended an emergency meeting of the Hague Group in Bogotá, where representatives from 30 countries discussed concrete steps to end the Gaza crisis. Dangor reminded everyone that they bear the ultimate responsibility to protect the rights of the Palestinian people. The United States, however, threatened to defend its interests and its allies, including Israel, from any legal or diplomatic moves against them. Despite this, 12 countries, lacking the power to challenge the superpower, stood firm and announced measures such as an arms embargo and plans to prosecute Israeli war criminals. Between the extremes of bombing tracks, imposing arms embargoes, or doing nothing at all, there exists a broad spectrum of possible actions. Recently, numerous human rights organizations and civil society groups called on nations worldwide to support a humanitarian convoy. They urge diplomatic missions to accompany aid trucks at the Rafah crossing and to enter Gaza alongside them, ensuring aid reaches those in desperate need. The urgency is clear. Decisive action is needed now, and all options must be considered. The question remains, will the world finally step up to prevent another tragedy, or will history repeat itself once again? What do you think? Should more aggressive measures be taken, or is diplomacy the only viable path? Share your thoughts in the comments.